Hi, my name is Michelle Strain. I'm the Instructional Facilitator of Counseling from Middle Schools. I'm a licensed professional counselor candidate, and I have a couple of master's degrees in counseling. I'm really happy to be with you all today, and I hope you get a lot out of the Case for Hope. So what is hope? Hope is the capacity of individuals to identify meaningful pathways to the goals they set. This is the definition by Dr. Chan Hellman of OU's social work professor and founding director of the Hope Research Center at OU. Dr. Hellman is an expert on hope, and what his research has found is hope is an antidote to trauma. Let's take a look at this short video about Dr. Chan Hellman.
I'm Chan Hellman, and I'm a professor at the University of Oklahoma, and I'm a director of the Hope Research Center. The book that we recently published is called Hope Rising: How the Science of Hope Can Change Your Life. Hope is the single best predictor of our ability to thrive. My work is primarily focused on children who've experienced abuse and neglect. When we're able to nurture hope among individuals who've experienced trauma, we can change the trajectory from despair to thriving. You don't have to let that trauma and adversity dictate the rest of your life. I do a lot of public speaking over the last year, probably 2 to 3 times a week, all around the country. I grew up in a small town in northwest Oklahoma called Helena, Oklahoma. So I had a very specific teacher who impacted my life, who is the reason that I'm alive today. I was experiencing tremendous adversity during my middle school and high school years of some homelessness, some extreme poverty. And this teacher, Mr. Berg, was teaching gym. He was also the science teacher in our middle school. And he came and sat by me in the gym, and while the other students were playing, and he leaned into me and he didn't say anything. It was just that he acknowledged that I was there. He acknowledged that he understood that I was going through some difficult times. And after a few minutes, he started to pull away and he said, "You're going to be okay." And that was a moment in time that changed the trajectory of some of the decisions that I was contemplating in my life. Teachers hold a special place in our society of transitioning our youth into adulthood, and they have tremendous opportunity and capacity to change the trajectory of a child's life who's hurting. And so I would encourage them to be intentional in their interaction with all children.
Dr. Hellman has found that you can measure hope, which is a really interesting thing. High hope individuals perform differently than low hope individuals, according to his research, and positive psychology is an important key in this research. Normally, people tend to look at what's wrong with a person, but in positive psychology, we start to look at what's right with people. When you look at what is right with someone, you can help people by focusing on improving their character strengths, and then they're able to overcome adversity. This is something that's valued across culture, according to Dr. Hellman, and character strengths help overcome adversity, which is something we all want in our schools. Dr. Hellman looked at the positive psychology character strengths. There's all kinds of positive character strengths that people can have, whether it's creativity or curiosity, it could be gratitude, it could be teamwork. There's all kinds of really amazing character strengths that people can possess that help them overcome adversity. The cornerstone of Dr. Chanman's theory and of hope theory in general is hope is the top predictor in a person's capacity to flourish. So the more hope they have, the more likely they are to be successful, to flourish, and overcome adversity. So what is hope theory? Hope theory was developed about 20 years ago by Dr. Rick Snyder. It mainly talks about, first, setting goals, second, identifying the pathways to those goals. Pathways are considered the way power or the mental roadmap to goal attainment. And then finally, agency needs to be secured. Agency thinking can be considered the willpower that someone can direct and sustain toward their goal pursuits. You can think of it kind of like building blocks. First, it's important to establish your goals. Anything that you desire to get done, to do, to experience, or to create can be made into a goal. Pathways thinking is the next block. Those are the strategies that you need to achieve your goals, how you're going to get there. And then agency thinking are the thoughts regarding your capacity to initiate and sustain the movement toward the goal. The really interesting thing about hope theory is that high hope individuals often have a lot of different ways to accomplish their goals, many different pathways. It's interesting too to consider that willpower is finite. It's definitely something that you can run out of. Willpower is connected to how much energy we have, so things like nutrition and rest are very important. And then pathways and agency are both required for hope. Agency without a pathway, well, it's more like a wish. One hope theorist, Dr. Shane Lopez, studied hope theory in relation to schools and school children. He found that individuals with high hope have a lot better success. They have a lower absentee rate, and we know that being at school is the most important thing to a kid's learning. They had higher GPAs and higher grades. They even had higher rates of going to college. Ultimately, hope is a key factor to the success of our students. There are a lot of benefits, according to the hope theory. People with high hope have improved social behaviors, increased self-control, which is so important in our classrooms. High hope individuals have better coping resources against stress. They are more likely to achieve their goals. They're less likely to get burned out. It also predicts substance abstinence, which is key, especially to our adolescent population. It predicts lower recidivism among offenders. People with high hope experience improved social, psychological, and physical well-being. Hope as a social gift is really important. It does not operate in a vacuum. It's something that shows our interactions with each other really matter. Children really need a supportive environment and a caring role model. You might even consider yourself a cheerleader, someone who encourages them and lifts them up. Education programs that target hope also see an increase in attendance, GPA, and graduation rates, according to Dr. Hellman and Dr. Lopez. Human services programs that are evidence-based are best practice models unified in their purpose on improving the quality of life. This video does a great job at explaining hope theory. Let's take a look.
The purpose of this video is to help you reach the future that you desire. You will learn some key insights from research in positive psychology that will help you overcome obstacles and develop your full potential. The psychologist Professor Rick Snyder developed hope theory and stated that hope consists of three components: goals, pathways, and agency. He discovered that hopeful people develop many pathways to reach their goals because they anticipate obstacles and don't expect things to be easy. They have high levels of agency. That means they persist and sustain their motivation to move towards their goals. They're energized and come up with new and different plans to overcome obstacles. Okay, let's get started. Here is how you can use hope theory to make your life better. What is a goal that you want to work on? Make it specific, measurable, and set a deadline so that you know when you reached your goal. Write your goal down. How would you feel if you reached this goal? Make sure it's something that you care about. Let's develop a pathway. How will you reach your goal? Write a pathway down. Often pathways consist of different sub-goals. Hopeful people develop a variety of pathways to be more flexible. Can you think of a different pathway? What is your plan B? What is your plan C? What is your plan D? Hopeful people anticipate obstacles, both internal and external. Research by Professor Gabriel Oettingen shows that when people visualize the obstacles and make concrete plans about how to deal with them, they are more likely to reach their goals. This technique is called mental contrasting with implementation intentions. By making concrete plans, we can address our obstacles and gain energy to take action. Sometimes there are ways around obstacles, and sometimes you just need to push through. What are obstacles that may hold you back? Think of ones that are both within you and ones that are external. What is one action you could take to overcome that obstacle? If happens, then I will. Oftentimes, when we are struggling in our goal pursuit, it is a sign that we're doing something new. Research has shown that the brain is similar to a muscle. The more you use it, the smarter you become. So struggling can actually mean that you're learning. However, make sure that you're evaluating the pathway you're taking and consider other ways to reach your goals. If you find yourself losing passion, or it seems like you exhausted all pathways, you may consider looking for alternative goals, and you can use this process again to increase the chances of reaching your next goal. So now that you have identified a goal and multiple pathways to reach it, what is your next step, and when will you take it?
We can't really talk about hope and shame and trauma without talking about what an ACE score is. An ACE score is an adverse childhood experience. It is aspects of a child environment that can really undermine their sense of safety and stability and bonding. Those are things like substance misuse, mental health problems, instability due to a parental separation or a household member going to jail or prison. ACEs are linked to chronic health problems, mental illness, substance misuse in adulthood. They can also negatively impact education and jobs. ACEs, though, can be prevented. What Dr. Hellman tells us about hope and adverse childhood experience scores is the higher the ACE score, the lower their hope. We have to do our best to raise our students' hope to increase their success. And there are a lot of ways to do that. Kids with high ACE scores are not hopeless. We just have to show them how to hold on to hope. I developed an acronym for HOPE to help us teach others how to have hope. It stands for help, overcome, power, and empathy. What we know from research on the brain is in order for a student to learn, they have to feel safe. They can't feel safe until they do so. So we have to provide that safe, secure environment for our kids. We have to help them learn. We can accomplish this with teaching hope in our classrooms by helping our students establish goals, then pathways, and then agency. When we talk about helping our students, one thing we cannot do is shame them. We have to be conscientious about not doing this. According to Brené Brown, a psychologist, shame is an intensely painful feeling or experience, believing that we're flawed and therefore that we're unworthy of love or belonging or connection. You just can't shame people into being better. It's like calling a student out in front of the classroom for forgetting to turn in their work. Shaming just does not work. One thing that we can use are these worksheets off Dr. Hellman's website. You can find them there. These worksheets help students set goals and then create pathways and agency thinking to accomplish those goals. This could be done in a guidance lesson or in the classroom, and it can be modified for really any age group. Another thing on Dr. Hellman's website is the Children's Hope Scale. This can be used with any age of student. It can be done on a piece of paper. It can be done through an interview with a counselor or a teacher. It can even be done through a digital form, which is what I created for counselors in Mendel. It's a great indicator of how a student's hope is doing. There are so many ways to build hope with your students. Of course, we talked about a guidance lesson on goal setting, administering the Children's Hope Scale, or really even just talking to students about a safe space. Our counselors recently this year did a minute meeting with their students, especially at the elementary age, where they introduced themselves and talked about a safe space. It was such a great way to build a connection. And in those meetings, they could talk about goals or what the students want to accomplish. It would be appropriate for all ages from pre-K to 12. Another important factor is meeting students' needs. When we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those are the basic things like psychological needs first, then safety, then love and belonging, then esteem, and eventually self-actualization. Meeting those basic needs are critical to create a space where a student can feel loved and come to school and learn. Next, let's look at the O in hope, overcome. Teaching students how to overcome adversity is key. That's by looking at multiple pathways in order to achieve their goal, to anticipate obstacles as they may arise, and really modeling how to overcome something is so important. This is probably the biggest reason why I do share some ways of how I've overcome struggles in my life with students when it is appropriate. I talk to them about struggles that I've overcome. Sometimes they're surprised to hear that I've had a hard life in some ways too. In fact, that's something we all can do. We've all had to overcome adversity, whether it's something small like failing a test, or something big like experiencing loss on some level. We can all share with students how we overcame adversity and that it will get better. Edutopia has a great article on power and empowerment. It's about giving your students a voice through forums for student feedback. That's more than class discussion. That's letting students have stake in the game. To give your students decision-making power in an area of curriculum. Do you want to read this book or that book? Do you want to do this lesson or that lesson? Put yourself in the sandbox, like I talked about. Putting yourself in with a student and helping them learn how they can be empowered and what they can do and take charge of themselves. Encouraging meaningful technology use in the classroom. And involve students in real issues. We know we have them. There's real issues all over our community. Let students be problem solvers. Let them get involved. Now to my favorite topic, empathy. Empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and imagining how they would feel. It's feeling with people. It's identifying something in yourself that helps you connect with someone else. It's avoiding at least. I believe we all can be empathetic. It's natural for some people to be empathetic and not as easy for others, but we all can learn how to do it. Let's watch this short video by Brene Brown on empathy. I think empathy would solve all the world's problems if we all were just a little better at it.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
With empathy, it's important that we model it for other students. It's important that we validate a child's feelings. I can remember one time that I was counseling a group of middle school girls, and they were in a big fight with each other over who was the biggest One Direction fan. While I kind of thought it was ridiculous, it was really important to them, and it was involving their whole world. So I validated how they felt. Whether it was important to me or not, it didn't matter. It's important that we believe a student's story. And it's important that we can point out empathy in books that we read our kids or in assignments that we're doing for others. It's making it a goal and a focus of our classrooms. Here are a couple of assignments that you can work on with kids. This If Your Shoes Could Talk assignment could really be used for many ages. It's the write or draw your shoes and say, if your classmates was trying to stand in the shoes, how would they feel? What would they experience? And then, if it's appropriate, you can let them share. It's all about empathy. It's important to work with students on helping them understand what empathy is. The first sheet is kind of a questionnaire that helps students understand and think about how they would feel in certain situations. The second is, let's say a student kicks over a chair or hurts another student's feelings. This would be a good way to help them reflect on what they did and how they felt and what they said, and if it made things better or worse. So when thinking about hope in practice, we have to learn how to help, teach our students how to overcome, how to give them power and empower them, and help them learn about empathy. Those things will build hope in our students, help them set goals, go down pathways, and experience agency thinking. Hope is an antidote to trauma. Thank you so much for tuning in for this lesson on hope. I hope that you will set some goals for yourself and think of some pathways and then your agency thinking, of course, in order to eventually help your students learn. If you have more questions, I encourage you to go to Dr. Chan Hellman's website. Have a great day.